Okay, so so thinking about Pullman's interest in ritual and then his very complicated relationship with religion specifically,
Hmm.
but his avowed respect for, but difference of opinion, right? We'll say with the Christian religion in particular. I wonder then how you feel like, our perspective character Lyra helps us kind of think about that in particularly in the new uh, uh, Book of Dust, and particularly in books two and really three especially. Um, what are we? I guess La Belle Sauvage, right? It starts to complicate our picture of religious people in Lyra's world for sure. But yeah, what do you feel like we're supposed to take away here? What do you take away from this uh, new take on religion and ritual more generally in the new books?
Well, I mean, as you were saying, you correctly, as we all know, Philip Pullman really rejects religion and religious ritual. That's not, let's be honest, it's not his favorite cup of tea. Um, yeah, what I would say, I mean, all the books are full of ritual. And I'll try and stay off his dark materials, and we'll concentrate on the Book
It's
of
okay.
Dust.
Yeah.
But when you think about Jordan College.
Oh, right. Yeah. From the
The
very start.
scholars, the high table dinners, where she meets Mrs. Coulter. It's all the retiring room, the lithiometer almost as a sacred object. This is all kind of ritualistic.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
everyone's wearing their gowns. It's not religious. It's academic. It's knowledge as religion. Yeah.
Hmm.
For Philip Pullman, I think that's often the choice he makes is knowledge and understanding is, and I don't want to. He'd hate me for saying this. It's his religion, which we kind of know. It's a quest for knowledge and truth,
Yes, yes.
and making that the new religion. The alethiometer, it's kind of quiet concentration, it's interpretation, it's discipline. It's almost a form of divination. The witches. I mean, cloud pine, clans, coming of age practices,
Yes,
working
yes.
with nature, spells, healing,
Mm,
deeply tied to ritual. Malefa, collecting their seed pods,
right.
you know, talk, sharing stories, collecting memory, they pass it down from generation to generation. So we got all that. Yeah, I think the bench is the biggest ritual of all
Of
in the
course.
whole outstanding
But
series. Same
but
day,
then
same time, same place, and it
it's
survives when relationships don't. The ritual survives.
but it's essentially absent from the new books, right?
Yeah.
Will is he's mentioned, he's in her mind, sort of, but we don't see her really worried about the bench, you know? And maybe it's just the wrong time of
No.
year. I'm not sure.
It's like Philip was saying you gotta to me, and I can only speak personally. It feels like he's saying you got to move on from Will and Lyra.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
the
yeah.
it's first love. It doesn't often work out. Um, she's understanding how she's going to survive. The Book of Dust is like a survival story. It's
Hmm.
not heroics. It's how am I going to survive these cross deserts and modern pressures and growing up. How does someone survive this? How does
Yeah,
someone live? How does someone continue with this? So it feels like the focus is pulled away from any kind of romantic, epic love, which
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense. He kind of he slightly dispels epic storytelling and moves on to the more reflective episodic one. So how how do we marry that up? I think it's been difficult. I think it's been a difficult process for a lot of readers.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the hardest thing of all. That's the hardest thing of all. And we get the festivals, we get the moon festival, we get celebrations around the rose field, we get
Mhm.
traditions and rituals surviving after people forgot why they began. It's a bit like Lauren Will. She's starting to forget why it almost feels like she forget what happened with him,
That's
and she's
right.
moving on to something that's going to be with her for the rest of her life, which is just like, how do I fit in?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I wonder if people have experienced that first love and move from innocence to experience do end up realizing is the bigger question is how do I fit into the world
Yeah.
at some point um, when I grow up. And growing up can be hard, and that's that lovely if we take it back to the solstice again, that's that lovely moment of maximum expression, maximum light, maximum energy, but things changing again. It's the threshold. And Philip Pullman loves thresholds. You've got windows, you've got
Yes, yes.
lights cutting through through worlds, you've got, bonds between atoms. He takes it right to the every threshold. He loves thresholds, he loves ritual, he loves the cyclical nature of things. And craftsmanship, the Meteor,
Absolutely.
the red building, the moon charm, everything, everything the Griffins do is all ritualized. Even making becomes ritualistic for Philip
Yeah.
Pullman. Yeah, things are sacred objects that end up kind of being tools. You know what I mean? And that's another wonderful thing. Things that were just explained to us in the amber spyglass as kind of sacred objects end up becoming tools. And
Yeah.
it's a bit like the slide between um, these sort of huge cosmological things going on, and the rituals that Lyra ends up partaking are much more simple.
Mhm.
And we get the alethiometer deconstructed, we get myth deconstructed through the Griffins, we get gold and alethiometer, we get all these things boiled down, and even what the subtle knife made gets kind of taken down so we can
Yeah.
bomb it.
Yeah, that's right.
Whether I agree, whether I agree with that kind of idea or not, but it's Philip Pullman destroying the myth. It's literally him
Exactly.
lobbing a grenade at the myths he created. Going, no, we're not going to have any more myths and epicness anymore. So what survives is the ritual. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
it's the ritual that survives. It's the collective memory. It's the idea of what things meant to people. And funny enough, it almost becomes like Lyra reflecting on the relationship with Serafina Pekkala because she finds that she's being murdered.
Yes, yes.
Lyra's relationship with the alethiometer ending.
Mhm.
It's boiled down to its, just its absolute, essence, which is the silver needle. It's
Mhm.
Lyra's um, deconstruction of the kind of relationship with Will, but become part of the wider world.
Yeah.
It's Lyra's everything is deconstructed very subtly. The angels, the lies that the angels told, the idea of that she's going to have this big epic quest. No, when the sorcerer gets evaporated and the griffins are happy again, she moves on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And what I get is this feeling that these rituals and these stages in the journey constantly teach us not to get too overexcited.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? We get to the epic battle on the fiery mountain, it ends. She moves on.
Yeah.
We get to the red building. Okay, a moment of wonder, but then it's restrained again and drawn back. And I think that's one of the wonderful powers of the Rosefield, especially.
Mhm.
It's the rituals are kind of reflective of kind of times gone by and that epic nature of things breaking down and becoming much more kind of realistic about things.
Yeah.
Lyra has become much more realistic about what these myths and rituals mean.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking of the image of the rose oil that we kind of start the adventure with, right? There's this little vial of it that she gets, and they talk about how they used to use it, but it's hard to get the good quality now, and that's sort of the first inkling that these problems are all connected, right? The murdered person and um, what's going on in Central Asia and this and that, right? And then when we come to the end, as you say, the gold that had been the alethiometer is made into this kind of crown, sort of in the image of entwined vines or something like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of organic image, but of course it's also this kind of alchemical image, right, of the gold. And there's this moment where she hands it off to the people who had been
Yeah,
basically
yeah.
taken
She
away
leaves, she leaves it in the wool basket where she does the lady does the knitting. Yeah, if I
as
remember.
a way for them to maybe be able to, yeah, preserve themselves, survive a little bit longer, right? And when she does that, it's really striking. She has, or it's Malcolm rather. Malcolm has this image of when Sister Benedicta was standing up to the men who had come to try to take Lyra away as a baby, right? And we saw that scene.
Yeah,
And so there's this moment where Lyra, she can't talk them down. She can't authoritatively, have her voice heard by them. And so instead she has to give this kind of secret gift And I,
Yeah.
I see that as a
Yeah.
really powerful image for what Pullman's up to. He can't authoritatively like tell us, the truth or something, but instead he just sort of slips in this quasi mystical dust. Maybe that's sort of the thing that helps to um, encapsulate. It's like the distillation of all of this meaning that we feel in our relationships with our craft, with one another, with imagination, right? So it's a kind of a way of us having something to hold on to, even though we can't get like the Republic of Heaven, fully realized or something like that. It's up to us to continue sort of wrestling with this and just muddling through in a way. So I really like that way of kind of thinking about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how the alethiometer comes like a lockpick. It becomes a, it becomes it
Essentially,
becomes a tool. It becomes a tool for getting to the next place,
yes,
rather than a tool for divining the truth. And it becomes much more
yes.
mechanical, much more realistic, much more kind of down to earth again. And I think beyond that, if you think about Malcolm making the crown of vines, which is something from nature, and then it's crafted by man, it's
Mhm.
passed on. Yeah, Lyra goes amazing, it's beautiful, but then ultimately passes on
Gives it
because
away right
it
away.
gives
Yeah,
it away because it's because the value of the gold has become more important than the value of meaning. And I think that's
yeah.
really the meaning between of relationships and people is broken down so far that gold is the only thing. And look, um, um, Lyra has the conversation at the end, and they go with a cousin, and it goes, "What are we going to do?" And he goes, "Well, I'm sure someone would pay me to read the lithiometer," and that's the killer point for
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like everything's boiled down to money. So the lithiometer's been boiled down to money,
yeah.
and then he's talking about his lithiometer, going, "Well, it's going to make me some money, and that's what it's going to do." And I think, look, going back to dust, look, if dust is created by kind of consciousness and human experience, are rituals one of Pullman's ways of creating and sustaining dust, through
Absolutely.
the rituals we have,
Yeah,
through that they preserve memory and meaning, imagination, relationships and stories, through what we repeat, between ourselves and what we hand down. And I think that's a really, really strong way to. I almost kind of imagine like Lyra look out at the Moon Festival, and somewhere there'll be a passage, and Philip would have written, and the fields of dust, flowed around the people dancing.
right,
And I
right,
thought that
right.
would have been a really beautiful way to end it, even if she's feeling downtrodden. You know what I mean? Just to give us that hope that things survive. But as it is, he went. I feel personally he went much more kind of melancholy in a way and reflective. It was just pure reflection. She's just staring out, going, "I'm going to keep telling my stories."
Yeah,
And I think that's her ritual. That's her ritual.
yeah.
Her ritual is to tell stories. I don't think, I think, we talk about making money and stuff, but her ritual, whatever Lyra does, and we were talking about this as one of the first questions, whatever Lyra goes on to do and how she tells the stories, I think the most important thing is that Philip Pullman says, "I'm going to keep telling them," because
Mhm.
that keeps that ritual alive, that memory alive. And
Yeah,
and maybe that's really, subtle in the wording or
yeah.
the end, but maybe I sometimes think, maybe what's Philip Pullman trying to tell us at the end? Is he telling us that we should be downtrodden and everything's going to get dug up and turned into gold, or is he really just saying, well, whatever happens, have your
Mhm.
rituals, they'll survive. Lyra's got hers, Bombville's got his. Azrael had his, the witches had theirs, they're still flying around their broomsticks in the cloud pine. The griffins had theirs. Maybe it's turning into in a past age, but don't forget your memories. Don't forget your memories, your stories, your rituals, because they're everything.
That's connected right with this idea of Pan throughout the story going to seek her imagination, right? And if that's where we end up, then in a sense his quest has been successful. They are reunited, although there's still, things they haven't talked about and maybe they can't talk about with one another. So there is a kind of melancholy, of course, but ultimately, yeah, she is not defeated by this
Yeah.
modern world and all of the term he comes up with right from alchemy, the alkahest, right? This
Okay.
this
Yeah.
universal solvent, this thing that dissolves all bonds, right,
Yeah.
has not triumphed yet, at least, right? We still
Yeah.
have the Moon Festival, even in this very barren place where the rose field once was, or the literal rose garden rather, because the rose field, of course, is still there, right? It's just invisible
Yeah.
to the ordinary sight. Yeah, so I do like that idea. Um, and I wonder, yeah, about um, the storyteller in Pullman. He loves to be provocative. He loves to say things that will get attention. And often he says, the reason he writes stories is to make money. Why does he tell it
Yeah.
that way?
Yeah.
Because it was going to sell books. And
Yeah.
he's pretty upfront about that. Again, I don't know how much of that is sort of him playing a part, and how much of that is, genuinely that's like what he's best at, and that's his craft. And by golly, he's gonna get as much money from it as he can. So, um, yeah, there's a bit of him, I think, in that Bonneville moment where he's like, well, I'm gonna
Yeah,
get
there's a
paid.
tension there. There's definitely a tension there. There's a
Yeah,
tension. Do you feel like the 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 romantic idea of the ethermometer and the journey the even the instrument's been on and it survives. I think it's funny. It's got all interesting that Lyra's doesn't,
yeah,
but his does.
yeah,
Um, yeah, it does ask you what the what the author really thinks of his craft because it's all about craftsmanship. Is his craftsmanship breaking down, or is he Bonville? Is he Lyra? Is he a bit of both? Is he not
yeah.
decided? You could place him in both those characters.
Remember
Uh,
the old general writing his memoirs? It's a very brief moment, and he talks about hearing the fairies,
yeah,
song through the right. In the audiobook, there's an interview he has with the reader, the actor who reads the whole thing. Is amazing, and he says there, he's going to write his memoirs. He's been talking about this for a while, and so maybe there's that element too. Like
yeah, yeah.
telling stories is one thing in the fictional world, and then, a lot of himself has gone into that. Maybe it's time for him to sort of distill down, like, what has his life really been? What are the
Big.
stories, the real stories that the kind that Lyra tells the harpies, right? That we're all supposed to tell the harpies when we get there, to set our souls free or whatever.
One comment he made after finishing the Rosefield and being in an interview, it's probably on his own Instagram channel or
Uh,
whatever. When he was talking about finishing the books, what was the first words that came out? I believe they were, "It's a relief."
yeah, he's so happy it's done.
So it's like he's handing it over,
Yeah, yeah,
which I can understand. It's hard to imagine what it must be for the writer having
yeah,
carried the story for so long and seeing the world change as well.
yeah,
But I think if we're talking about rituals, if we talk about the summer solstice, the meaning of the seasons, and especially the UK with Stonehenge and on the history around the
right.
seasons here. Um, I think what it says to me is, again, it's Stonehenge isn't important because the stones, okay, they're amazing, yeah,
Yeah.
but it's the ritual that goes with it. It's
Mm.
today when the Druids stand there and see the sun come through the over the
Yeah.
altar, the stones at the right angle, and it's a bit like the bench. The bench is important because it's the bench. It is to us as fans because it represents something important.
Yes.
But it's important because it becomes a ritual for them. It becomes something that outlasts everything else.
Yeah.
It outlasts the magic, it outlasts the relationships. And there was a beautiful symmetry between the end of the Amber Spyglass and the end of the Rosefield there.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
the reflected light and reflecting on sitting, doing things you did, doing things you remember you from a childhood, doing things that remember you better times. Yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
potentially. I think that's definitely a flavor of the Rosefield is Philip remembering better times when
Absolutely.
people didn't chuck you out of your house and
Right.
imagination wasn't getting trampled over by bulldozers and
Yeah.
pulled up. But I think there's something superbly intelligent. I mean, I'm just as a fan
Mhm.
going from full summer to this reflective moonlit night with people dancing,
Mhm.
and it being not about one person in your life, it's being part of a collective. And I think that's another parallel between the bench, Will and Lyra, the heroes that they felt they were, the loss, the joy, all those things mixed together. And then we get to a place where it's not just about one person, it's about community, it's
Mhm.
about continuity, it's about the rituals humans make rather than the ritual of a bench or a place for two people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. That we sort of, yeah, just leave her there in that other world. We don't see her return. We don't see her, you know, it's not even really a concern at that moment. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a strange ending. Um,
Yeah,
well, look,
it is a strange ending. It is a strange ending. I'm glad you said that, Wesley. I th you know, I did a poll on my online, and I mean, a few people answered, etc. Probably the most hard people who would be
yeah,
online, and the number one answer out of the four choices was, "How do you feel about the ending?" It's a complicated mix.
yeah,
So maybe that's a good place to leave it. And we
yeah.
know Philip's work is multi-layered. There's so many resonances and
Mhm.
so many themes and so much intellectual, so many intellectual ideas and philosophical ideas there, that maybe it's good to leave it
I think so.
in that place where we're like not sure. Yeah.
Especially on the first read. And this is
Yeah.
where I'm at right now. I'm working through this very, very slowly, reading each chapter kind of, and then looking at the whole again. But so again, thank you very much for your
Sure.
time today, and hopefully we do keep talking and with more
Yeah.
of your friends and people that you've gotten to know online and things like that. I would love to meet you in Oxford someday at
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bench, or wherever in Bristol
Do
or
it.
wherever you end up. I'd love to meet Pullman, before too much longer here and get to interview him. And I won't ask him the really specific things, but just to get to talk to him really because he's meant so much to me. So I met him briefly. He signed a book or two one time when he was on a tour of the U.S. But just at a book signing, I didn't get to really ask him
Uh,
questions and talk to him and this and that.
I've
So
never really got to ask him any
yeah,
questions. I paid my respects last summer in Oxford.
yeah,
I got to chat to him briefly. He was walking around Blackwell's,
awesome. Yeah, the bookstore. Yeah.
and I just bumped into him and had a little word. But yeah, no, there's yeah. I mean, have you been to Oxford then, or ever
I
to?
was really young. I came on a family vacation once, and we didn't spend long. We just kind of passed through, just sort of looking around for like a day, So I've never had a chance to fully like kind of
Have you
get
not
get
gone to
in.
the kind of His Dark
Yeah, I
Materials?
wasn't able to do any of the like the tour, the proper tour. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, we've been. I mean, you can go up to Sunderland Avenue and see
The hornbeam trees. Yeah.
hornbeam trees are all there. Simon and I have been to Godstow
Oh,
to the
cool.
Abbey. It's just over from the Trout, so you can literally walk over the bridge.
That would be so
It's
fun.
opposite. It's literally how it is in the books. It's literally
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And having lunch at the Trout's great on your birthday and seeing the bench. But if you're into Tolkien or any other
Oh, yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
authors, you got the big tree that came down in the Botanic Garden.
I didn't know about that. No.
Oh, it's a huge old pine tree, and I can't remember what type of pine tree it was, but I'll dig up a photo for you and send it to you by email. It
Okay.
was his inspiration for the Ents. So if
Oh,
you're into,
wow.
yeah, and then you got Lewis Carroll who used to walk around the
Sure.
gardens.
Yeah.
So you got all this kind of history there. But I think the funniest thing is it feels like a little journey to find the bench. I mean,
Yeah.
it's signposted now or on the map.
Okay, yeah.
But it's kind of unassuming from a distance,
I,
and it's just under a little tree right at the end of the garden. And you feel like you got a little spiritual journey walking through the garden to get there. So hopefully you can do that one day, sir.
I certainly will try. I'll try. And
Cool.
yeah, we'll be in touch. So
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you want any questions or anything, I was thinking like if you ever want to do a neighbor of ours down the road used to be the Golden Monkey in all in the original Barbican production
Whoa.
of His Dark Materials, and my cousin used to be the Golden Monkey puppeteer for the touring version. So maybe we can get them all together and do like a
Okay.
whole how you handle demon handling kind of conversation.
Demonology. Yes, that sounds
Demonology,
good.
yeah. But anyway, look, there's loads to go on. But no, great to meet your acquaintance, and I could talk forever
Okay.
with you about Philip Pullman. That's got to be a good sign. So,
That sounds great to me. Okay.
cool.
Take care.
Great.
Until next time.
See you soon.
Okay.
Take care.